And this is Jason Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We are live right here at the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas, and we are live on the radio at 98.7 Walk by Faith and 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation. Hope you guys are having an awesome day. This is Tuesday, August 13th, and we are coming to you with some new stuff tonight. So we took health to church last night. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And it was it was trying to be a little bit encouraging. Sometimes I don't know if I am or not, but what the heck? Yeah, that's what we were trying to do last night. Encourage you a little bit, just remind you, hey, you got God on your side. You know, there's one of those sayings or one of those scriptures that says something about if I can do all things with He who strengthens me, something like that. I don't memorize all those. I just live them. I just try to remember them as I go. So maybe I should remember. Maybe I'd be better off if I try to memorize some of them. But you guys could do that same thing. But that was encouraging. Go back and watch last night's show if you want to. And tonight we're going to get into all kinds of stuff. I just had some thoughts. I saw some articles. I saw some research stuff I wanted to talk to you guys about. I've got some patients dealing with some things that I really wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to share with you some ideas about what we're going into with this whole respiratory season of illness, what's happening right now. We talked about vitamin D last week. What can we do? You know, I want to touch on some of those things. I want to touch on some ideas about what we can eat to be better. I want to share some of that thought with you. And so there's just going to be a bunch of different stuff that we're talking about tonight. And hopefully, we can get something out of this and have a good show. So if you got any questions for me, you want to send me a text, 806-794-0400 is our text line. You can send us a text anytime, and I'll try to get you an answer. If I could do it right here on the air, I'll get it right now. And if I can't, I will I'll send it make sure we get you a text after the show. If you want to send me something on Facebook, on YouTube, on X, should be able to get it right here during the show. I'd be glad to talk to you about it. So if you got something on your mind, something that we've said, I know we got some new listeners that have come to the show, some people that are come back to the show. That's awesome. And so anybody, if there's anything I could do to help you, just send me if you got questions, just send it this way. So this is going to be a little bit controversial, whatever. I don't care. And it's not, I'm not trying to be controversial, but sometimes the people say, oh, you're not supposed to talk about that. And I'm like, well, I'm just talking about health. Let me back up one step. What I do as a health and wellness chiropractor that bases everything in functional neurology is my job is to detect and correct subluxations, not even vertebral subluxations, but just subluxations. So I'm trying to find out where you have interference in your nervous system, and then I'm trying to remove that interference and let your body function the way it's supposed to function, right? So I was listening to a podcast earlier on my way to Littlefield, and about the excess death rates between Moderna and Pfizer. I don't know why I listened to that crap, but I was listening to it on John Campbell's page. You guys know that. I talk about him a lot. He brings you some pretty good stuff, and he's from the UK. He's talking about stuff over there, and they were breaking down some stuff. I'm not getting into that part of it tonight, but the girl said something. The lady on the podcast, she said a phrase, and it just made me think for a second. She said vaccine hesitancy is what she said. She said that the lack of transparency and the lack of data that's coming out of the UK, and they're talking about for themselves, right? So, and we are a global world today, but she said the lack of data and the lack of transparency is creating vaccine hesitancy. And it's kind of cool when you're quiet, like when you get a chance to just be alone and listen to something, just where you have a moment to think. And driving back and forth to Littlefield on Tuesdays, it gives me a little bit of that time just to be in the car by myself, listen to something I want to listen to, and then think about it. And when she used that word vaccine hesitancy, I just thought to myself that's another one of those made up terms. Okay, that's another one of those made up terms that somebody is. That's like alternative medicine. It's just a complete hogwash made up term. They're creating vaccine hesitancy, and I just thought to myself, hey, that's something that I ought to bring up. Now, I can't tell you to take a vaccine or not take a vaccine. That's not within my scope of practice in the state of Texas, to tell you to take medicine or not take medicine. I can simply discuss to you whether or not it creates interference in your nervous system or not. That's my job. So, but when I heard that term today, I thought to myself, I have no hesitancy whatsoever with vaccines. I'm completely not interested in them at all. None of them. Hadn't had one since 1999. That's 25 years now. Not going to have another one until I die. Ever. Not going to do it. Not interested in it. It's not health. I'm not interested in it. You guys may be interested in it. I know half of you got the COVID vaccine. That's fine. Y'all are grown people. If you decide that that's what you want to do, God bless you. Go ahead. But I'm not hesitant at all. And my daughter's never had one either. And my son didn't have but the first set, and then I learned better, and they're not having it. And if I had another child today, there's absolutely no way they would get a vaccine. None of them. Not one single vaccine. And I'm not scared to say that. If I'm talking about my family with me and just me, right? I'm not talking about what you do with your family. The only thing I do want you to know is that there's some people out there that study the living crap out of this stuff, and I've got no interest in it whatsoever. None. I don't have any hesitancy when it comes to vaccines. I don't really have any hesitancy when it comes to Tylenol, and I want to talk. I want to talk about that too. Really don't have any hesitancy when it comes to alcohol, none at all. And I've gotten to where I don't even have any hesitancy with sugar, like in the last 29 months. So just know that sometimes when you hear those sentences, just our listeners, just us that come hang out with me from 6 to 7 Monday through Friday, you guys that come and hang out with me, listen to me on the radio, and just know that sometimes you got to watch those words. Like you just got there's a narrative going on behind the scenes, and there's a narrative that's going on. And I'm not saying that to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm saying that because they'll use those, like they'll just use it as if like vaccines is the norm, like that's the norm of health. And it's like, when did that become the norm? In 1980 something? Like if you think about how many vaccines were delivered before 1980 and Ronald Reagan put that whole law into effect versus how many are today, it's ridiculous. And now the mainstream people are actually starting to come around and talk about that a little bit. Dr. McCullough and all that, all of a sudden the medical doctors are starting to say, oh, wait, you know what? We should really analyze this thing. And that's not what I'm talking about. But it's like, you have hesitancy about vaccines since when? Like since 1492? I mean, did Columbus and them have hesitancy? Like, what about Jesus and them? Did those guys have, well, should we do that or should we not do that? Like, I mean, the 8 billion people on the planet, and for the last however many thousands of years human beings have been on the planet, we didn't have vaccines. Then you say, well, we died of all this stuff. No, we didn't. We're still here. We didn't get to 8 billion because all of a sudden we got vaccinated. That's not true. So anyway, I don't want to get too deep into that. I just wanted to share that thought with you. I just wanted to share the thought that I'm not hesitant at all. Not interested in it. And I can back it up with science. And I could back it up with research, and I could back it up with theory, and I could back it up with philosophy, and I could back it up with innate intelligence, and then not a chance, not a living chance that I'm not hesitant about it. I'm pretty certain. I'm solidly certain about that particular thing. It has nothing to do with health. And anyway, okay, so let's stop. And let's get that covered. So let's transition that thought into, I thought of this concept because I saw this article, and I've heard about this from the beginning of time. I'll show it to you. I've been hearing about this for years. And every time I hear about it, I'm just like, this makes no sense whatsoever to me. So here's an article right here that's talking about bleeding risk in patients receiving. This is from the Journal of the American Heart Association. Okay, so it's not from some weirdo chiropractic group, right? These are some high powered docs and stuff. MD, MD, PhD, MD, MD, MD. All these guys here, right? The Journal of the American Heart Association, and here's the article. Because here's what I get. I get patients that tell me that they can't take their fish oil because of some problem that they have. They can't take their fish oil because of they're about to have surgery. They can't take their fish oil because one guy told me this week, and I love this dude, and he's been told by his practitioners or whatever that when he gets his steroid shots in his back, that he's not allowed to take his fish oil for a few days before his steroid shots in his back. And so, but here's the article says this. The title is Bleeding Risk in Patients Receiving Omega-3 Polyunsaturated Fatty Acids, a Systemic Review and Meta-Analysis of Randomized Clinical Trials. The background, there's a potential concern about increased bleeding risk in patients receiving omega-3 fatty acids. The aims of this study level meta-analysis were to determine the risk of bleeding and to assess whether this relationship is linked to the received dose of omega-3 or the background use of antiplatelet treatment. So they went through there and a total of 120,643 patients. That's a big study right there. 120,643 patients from 11 randomized clinical trials were included. And there was no difference in the pooled analytic event of bleeding among patients receiving omega-3s and those in the control group. And they went through there, and their conclusion was this. Omega-3 fatty acids were not associated with increased bleeding risk. Patients receiving high-dose purified EPA may incur additional bleeding risk, although its clinical significance is very modest. One more time. Conclusion from the Journal of the American Heart Association, right? Written by a bunch of MDs. Conclusion, omega-3 fatty acids were not associated with increased bleeding risk, and patients receiving high dose of purified EPA may incur additional bleeding risk, although its clinical significance is very modest, right? And here's the problem that I have had. There's the problem that I've had with this type of stuff. The things that I get from the beginning. My problem is this. I'm not allopathic, meaning you don't take your fish oil to treat something. You don't do that. If that's your thought process, and I know how hard that is these days, and I know how hard it is to wrap your head around that idea, because the trillions of dollars that have been spent to train us from birth all the way through the entire just watch 60 Minutes on Sunday evening and watch how many drug commercials are in 60 Minutes. When I was in chiropractic school, and we don't have any magazines in our lobby. I don't put hunting and fishing magazines and Sports Illustrated magazines, and none of that stuff is in my lobby. You know why? Because for years, I had to go through there and pull out all of the drug ads that were in those magazines. When I was in chiropractic school, I used to sit in the lobby of Parker University, which was Parker College. I used to sit in the lobby of Parker College because they had all those magazines. And if I didn't have a patient or I was in between patients, sometimes I'd just go out there and sit, and I would go through every one of those magazines, and I would just rip all of those drug ads out of those magazines. Why am I reading Sports Illustrated and having 6 drug ads in the magazine, right? Because the drug companies own Sports Illustrated. That's what the whole point is. The whole point of it is to do it. And like I'm having a discussion about telehealth. We're going to increase telehealth. What does that mean? Why would you do that? Why would a medical team, why would a hospital, why would anybody want to increase telehealth? What is the end product of telehealth? How many of you guys have ever used a teledoc? If you guys have used a teledoc before, just say yeah, raise your hand. Just raise your hand if you've used a teledoc before, right? What'd you use it for? What was the end product of a teledoc? The end product of a teledoc is a pharmaceutical product. It's a drug. That's the reason you love the teledoc, because you don't have to go see a real doctor. You can just stand there in front of a TV, and then that you can tell the doc, hey, this is all my symptoms, and the doc can say, okay, I'll write you a script, and here's the end product is a drug, right? We have been so accustomed to being allopathic. I got a fever, got to get my fever down. I got arthritis, got to get that inflammation down. I've got high blood pressure. You better take a high blood pressure pill. I got acid reflux. You better take an antacid. One of my ladies, I love her to death. Today, she told me I can't wait till allergy season's over. That's what she told me. I can't wait till allergy season's over. And I thought I was adjusting her, and I was thinking to myself, it's allergy season. Like I didn't know that. What does that mean? It's allergy season for her, but it's not allergy season for me. Does that possibly mean that it's not my external environment that causes allergies? If two people are in the same environment and one of them has allergies and one of them doesn't, could we make an argument? Could we make an argument that it's not the external environment that causes the person to have allergies? Could we make the argument that it's the internal environment that makes the person have allergies? That's what I got presented to me when I started studying a lot of this stuff. I got these thoughts presented to me, right? I got them presented to me, and that's why I present them to you. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm just simply sharing them with you to say, look, it's not allergy season for me. I don't have any allergies. So why? Because I'm under the same cotton and the same trees and the same grass and the same stuff that someone else is in my community. I mean, the wind blows on me just like it blows on everybody else. So how come some people have that problem and some people don't? And what I got presented to me along the way was I got presented to me the idea that maybe it's internal. Maybe it's my internal environment that can't handle my external environment. I don't have the ability to adapt, right? So what do we try to do to combat that? What do we try to do we try to do healthy things? Why do I take my fish oil? I take my fish oil to be healthy, not to treat anything. I'm not treating heart disease. I'm not treating arthritis. I'm not treating anything. I take my fish oil because I want my 6:3 ratio to be right so that I know that my mitochondria have a chance to be protected. That's also why I eat my blueberries this morning. I eat my blueberries to go along with my fish oil that protects my mitochondria, and then I get my antioxidants from my blueberries and my strawberries, and I try to make sure that balance is right. Why do I do that? Just whenever I'm sick, or do I do that all the time? I do that all the time. Okay. If I do that all the time, why am I doing it? I'm doing it because I'm trying to do healthy things. Okay. Now let's go and look and what you get, and you should try this. If you ever get a chance to get to your computer or your phone, Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever it is you use, right? I use DuckDuckGo. Search on the internet contraindications to being healthy. I know it's a little smart aleck. I know it's just a little bit facetious there. Yes. Okay. Because I did that this afternoon, and I can't find anything. Like there's all I got was American Heart Association talking about how much exercise we should get, and all the things about sleep, and all the things about health, and all the things about supplements, and all the things about. That's what they didn't say. There was no. I have not heard any contraindications. Contraindications means it goes against it, right? It's like Being drunk is contraindicated for driving. You don't want to do that. So, right? So, something that's contraindicated means it goes against it. So, if you were to search on the internet, if you were to search and say, what's contraindicated to being healthy? What are the contraindications of being healthy? None. Then if my omega 6 3 ratio is helping me be healthy, why would I stop being healthy when I went and got surgery or if I got my shots in my back? Why would I do that? Like the, that it's like it doesn't compute properly in my brain. It doesn't compute properly. And the reason that people say that is because they're thinking allopathically. They're saying that, well, you're treating something with this, so we got to get you to quit treating something with this so that we can treat you with this. That's what they do with a lot of the autoimmune type stuff and the cancers and all that sort of thing, right? They want your immune system to be really, really low. Okay, here's one I just thought of that makes sense. Okay, they just gave you a heart transplant. All right, they're trying to shut your immune system off because it just gave you a heart transplant and they don't want your heart to reject that foreign tissue that's now been put. They don't want your immune system to reject the foreign tissue that's just been in your heart. Okay, that's fair enough. I get that. That makes total sense. We're not talking about health now. We're talking about something completely different. We've just replaced an entire organ. Okay, that's a different story, right? That's a different story. But for us normally, it wouldn't make any sense. Why would I stop being healthy for some reason? Like that I don't even know that doesn't make sense, right? And I've known this forever. People have always tried to tell me, well, I can't take my fish oil because it's contraindicated to my drug. I can't take my fish oil because it's contraindicated to my whatever my thing is, right? Whatever it is that's causing me an issue. Well, it's according to this article with these guys in the Journal of the American Heart Association, there's no contraindications. There's omega 3 fatty acids were not associated with increased bleeding risk because being healthy doesn't make you an increased bleeding risk person. There are other things that might make you an increased bleeding risk person, but not being healthy, not having your omega. I think a 28 to 1 or a 38 to 1 or a 60 to 1 omega 6 3 ratio is unhealthy. I think that is something that's contraindicated for life. I think it's like, whoa, dude, like you're 60 to 1, you're 38 to 1. Stop. You got to get your ratio down. Okay. So that was the article I saw. That's what I wanted to share with you. That was one of them right there. Okay. Now, I had a little scare with one of my older guys this week. He got sick. He got COVID. He had to go to the hospital at 3 o'clock in the morning. He's in his 80s. It's like, hold up, whoa, all right. So, and he called. He texted, said he's going to have to cancel his appointment because he's sick. It scared me a lot. I was like, no, whoa, hold up. So I cancel your appointment. Fine. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying like he got like, what do we do? That's a dangerous situation right there. You got an 80-year-old that's got heavy congestion, hard time breathing. That's not good, right? So my first question to him was, okay, are you taking vitamin D? And he said no. And it's like, okay, now wait, y'all. We used to do this at New Mexico State. When I was coaching football at New Mexico State, we had 3 staff meetings in 3 years. We would have an offensive staff meeting about 8 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning. The offense would meet together. The defense would meet together. We'd never meet together. But we would have the offensive staff would meet at about 8:30 in the morning. And by about 10 o'clock, we were done meeting. And now we didn't have practice till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:30, 3 o'clock before we had meetings and practice, right? So we were done at 10 o'clock. Our offensive coordinator used to say, "Come on." I think I told you this story the other day, right? Our offensive coordinator used to say, "Let's go get the coldest Coke in town." And so, all right, I'm a young GA. I'm like, whatever. I'll get in. He's the boss. I'll just get in the truck with him. So we drive around to the convenience store. We go get the coldest Coke in town with the little refrigerator back there. The water would drip on the Coke. I told you guys this story last week or two. It would drip on the Coke, and then we'd go back there and get the Coke, and we get in his truck, and we drive around the Oregon mountains right there behind Las Cruces, and we listen to white trash country, and he just talked trash about our head coach. That's what we did. When we would get in the middle of the game and nothing was working right, he would lose his ever loving mind. He would lose his mind in the middle of the game. I remember sitting there in the press box. I had my cap on and my shirt, and I think my cap I actually had to go buy from the bookstore because we didn't even have any caps. That we were so poor and poorly run and we didn't have any money, and so I didn't get like a uniform cap. Hang on, we got to go to a break. Sorry. We'll be right back. We're going to finish this story at the other side of the break because it does have some meaning. You guys stick around. We'll be right back. Sorry, that snuck up on me right there. We didn't. We were there was a Sports Illustrated article that talked about the two worst football programs in all of the country, and they were at one point it was Kansas State and New Mexico State, and then Bill Snyder came to Kansas State and turned that thing around, and then they became a powerhouse. Really, won the Big 12, all that sort of thing. They're one of the best teams in the country, or the top epsilon teams in the Big 12, and but New Mexico State, no sir, we were not, and we never turned it around. Even though last year I think they did play in a bowl game and it was fun to watch, but um, but I was sitting there. I was sitting there in the press box, and he was sitting right there next to me. And you get in the middle of the game, and all of a sudden, you can't do anything right. And the whole world is watching. Not the whole world. Not in Las Cruces. It wasn't the whole world, but all the people that were there, 12,000 of them, or however many came to the game that didn't stay out there in the parking lot and tailgate all night long. The rest of them that were in there, we were in the middle of the game. It was embarrassing. It was massively embarrassing when we could not do anything right. And part of the reason we couldn't do anything right is because we were driving around. We were driving around drinking the coldest Coke in town when we should have been working on doing things right. We didn't do that at Texas Tech ever, by the way. We met at 7 in the morning before Coach Dykes' meeting, and then we met afterwards, and then we went at lunch, and we came back after lunch, and we got together again, and we got ready for practice, and then after practice, we came back in, and we watched the film again, and then we made our recruiting calls, and then I went home at 10 o'clock at night, and then I came back the next morning at 6:30. That was coaching football at Texas Tech, not at New Mexico State. And so Coach would lose his mind. And one day he grabbed his Diet Coke he was sitting right next to me up in the press box. And he stood up and he chunked. He threw that Diet Coke as hard as he could up against that wall because he was so mad. Let me get us back on the radio. Let these radio people hear this. Okay, hey, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, and I'm telling you the story about. We're talking about being prepared when it's your turn, right? When you got to make sure that you're prepared. Well, my offensive coordinator lost his ever loving mind in the middle of the game. He did it multiple times when I was there in 3 years. Multiple. One time he came out of the press box at Nevada, come all the way down the field, and then chewed out my wide receivers, grabbed one of their helmets, threw it down the field, got all that. It was he did not have control. Healthy people inhibit, and he did not have the ability to inhibit. So he stood up in the press box and he just chunked that Diet Coke against that wall in a can. It was a can of Diet Coke. And he threw it against the wall and it busted, shattered all over the wall, and then Diet Coke just went everywhere, all over the press box. And I just ducked like that. I just ducked down, and I was like, oh. And then I had Diet Coke all over my notes, all over like my papers, all over my cap, my white cap that's in New Mexico State, covered in Diet Coke spots. My shirt was all covered in Diet Coke spots. It was like, whew, that was an intense moment right there for a young guy just getting his first job. it it was bad. You could look right down in front of us, and the athletic director and the president of the school and all those people, they were like turned around backwards, looking up, seeing what was going on in the press box. In the middle of the game, it's too late to prepare for the game. Is the lesson of the story. If you get to the middle of the game, and now all of a sudden you want to try to be healthy, that's a very, very dangerous time to do that. And we've got it up on the board. What is your vitamin D level? What are you taking vitamin D? What is going on with you? It's like, look, if you get in the middle of COVID and all of a sudden you decide, hey, I think I'll try to be healthy, that's a dangerous, dangerous situation, especially if you're in your 80s. So I know you guys that listen to the show. I know you guys are taking your vitamin D. I know you guys are taking your fish oil. But you might have a brother or a sister or somebody, a child even. If you're in your 80s, you might have a child in your 60s. And if that child's in their 60s, they might really want to try to do healthy things before you get in the game, because it's not a good situation to get in the middle of the game, okay? So I called him. Hey, I texted him. What's up? How are you feeling? What's going on with your cough? He's like, ooh, I had body aches and I got this horrible cough and all this sort of thing. Are you taking your vitamin D? No. Okay. My point is, and I also said, hey, look, here's the way. He told me about what vitamin D he had. And I said, just load them up. Like 20,000 IUs. Take them tonight. Take 20,000 IUs tomorrow to load it up as best as you can. Do what you can right now. It's not the best scenario, but it is a scenario. And am I treating it? Nope. I'm trying to get him as healthy as I can, as quick as possible. So we talked about that. And then when he said those body aches, that really made me think fever. And I was like, okay, don't, and stay away from Tylenol. And so it's like that's not what you're going to get. That's not what you're going to get in a sick care model. They're going to tell you, go home, keep your fever down, take your Tylenol, all that sort of thing. So I'm just going to present to you why I say that. And I'm just going to present to you. I'm going to present to you a couple of different ideas. Okay. And you can take them or leave them, but I want you to see them, and I just want you to know what glutathione is. So, and we've talked about it lots of times, but you might be new to the show, and you might want to hear it one more time anyway. Okay. Glutathione is one of the major antioxidants that you have inside your body, and glutathione is protecting your cells from outside invaders. It does several different things. All right. It's made from 3 amino acids that you get from proteins. You got to take those amino acids through that cell wall. This all comes from Jimmy Gutman, MD. Ingested glutathione has negligible effects on your health because it must be manufactured within your cells. Right? You can't take a glutathione pill. You got to take it, and you got to get it across that cell membrane. If you don't get it across that cell membrane and assemble a glutathione, you're not going to have it inside the cell, and it's going to be a problem. Glutathione modulation is an essential part of staying young, active, and healthy. The link between glutathione and all major causes of disease is profound. And here's the 3 big things. It's part of our immune system function. Glutathione is part of our immune system function. Elevated glutathione levels enable the body to produce more white blood cells. Glutathione is a sort of food for the immune system, and glutathione is at the heart of all immune functions. All right? It detoxifies us, and it's an antioxidant. It helps us protect ourselves from free radicals. So, but it's super important. It's like the Marines. It's the Marines on the wall. Okay? It's the Marines on the wall. You've got one cell in your lungs between air and the inside of your body. In the alveolar sacs. Let me see if I can get you a picture. See if I can get you a picture of that. It's This is close. I mean, this will do the job for what we're trying to do tonight. Um, just look, just you guys on the radio, just understand that inside your lungs you have a duct, you have a sac. That you've got these little alveolar sacs inside your lungs, and those little sacs are one cell layer thick because you got to be able. When you breathe in, you got to get that oxygen up against that. You got to get it deep up against that alveolar sac, and you got to get it up against there, and it's got to be able to transfer through one cell layer, not a thick one. That alveolar sac right there. If you were to do this, just scratch your arm. Just take your finger and scratch your arm. That I'm not bleeding. I'm not. If you're really thin skinned, be careful. Don't do that. Right. But right now, that doesn't cause blood to come through. If I was to do that to that little sac right there, I'd poke a hole in that dude so easy. It would just like melt. So that little cell, that little sac right there is only one cell layer thick. There's only one cell between the air that you breathe and the inside of your body. Think about that. Deep in your lungs. Breathe in. The air right in front of your mouth is fixing to go inside your body. And it's going to hit that alveolar sac, and there's going to be an exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, and then you're going to breathe out. Right? So, innate wisdom, that spirit that we talked about on Monday night, that innate wisdom says, hey, look, if I got one cell layer between me and the earth, the air, the whole thing, if there's only one cell layer between me and the environment, I better put the Marines on the wall. I better put glutathione inside that alveolar sac. I better have lung alveolar glutathione, and they better be plentiful, because it's like having the Marines on the wall. You want them on that wall. You need them on that wall, right? We've seen that scene before. Okay. It's also a detoxifier. Glutathione is also a detoxifier. So what does it detoxify? It detoxifies acetaminophen. It's one of the things. It detoxifies a lot of the stuff. But one of the things that it detoxifies is acetaminophen. And this is from the NIH itself, okay? This article right here is from the NIH, and it says acetaminophen decreases intracellular glutathione levels and modulates cytokine production. It decreases intracellular glutathione levels. And you can come in here and you can read some of this. And it could talk about a time and concentration dependent decrease of intracellular glutathione occurred after acetaminophen exposure 1 to 4 hours in pulmonary macrophages. In pulmonary, that's your lung. And type 2 pneumocytes. It comes down here to the bottom and it says, observations demonstrate that clinically relevant concentrations of acetaminophen decreased intracellular glutathione in human pulmonary macrophages and type 2 pneumocytes, and the secretion of tumor necrosis factor, possibly interleukin 6 in those. Now, those are some inflammatory things there, right? But when one of the things that acetaminophen will do is it will cause your liver, because you use glutathione in your liver, and I've said this, you guys know this, they use glutathione in the liver to detoxify us, to get that acetaminophen out of our body. So when the liver runs out of glutathione, it sends a signal to the lung to pull that glutathione back into the liver to get that toxin out of the body. Now you're leaving your lung unexposed. So the question becomes, whoops, the question becomes, what, why do I get a fever? What is the mechanism of a fever? What would cause me, if I was fixing to have a respiratory attack, if I was fixing to have some sort of attack, what would be the reason that my fever goes up, right? Fever or pyrexia, this is from the National Library of Medicine, okay? It's the physiology of fever. Fever or pyrexia is the elevation of an individual's core body temperature above a set point regulated by the body's thermoregulatory center in the hypothalamus. This increase in the body's set point temperature is often due to a physiological process brought about by infectious causes or non-infectious causes such as inflammation, malignancy, or autoimmune processes. The process involves the release of immunological mediators which trigger the thermoregulatory center of the hypothalamus, leading to an increase in the body's core temperature. I want to say that to you in very simple terms, okay? These processes involve the release of what sometimes we call cytokines by the white blood cells to the hypothalamus to turn the temperature up. It's your innate intelligence turning up your temperature. You feel bad when you have a fever, but your body is fighting. So what will happen to you if you just start taking your Tylenol to get your fever down? You start taking your acetaminophen, right? What's going to happen? Within 1 to 4 hours, you're going to start decreasing that acetaminophen level in your lungs and in the macrophages in your lungs. And what you're going to start doing is you're going to decrease your temperature, which gives the advantage to the virus, and which gives you the disadvantage to your white blood cells, because your white blood cells are the ones that these processes involve the release of these immunological mediators. Who released them? Where does the release of the immunological mediators come from? It comes from the white blood cells. What? You're telling me that my white blood cells is what told me to turn my temperature up? How'd you get your temperature up from 98.6 to 102? How'd you do that? How'd you get your temperature to go from 98.6 to 102? What caused that to happen? Your white blood cells did. Your white blood cells sent a signal to your brain, said, help us out, brother. Turn the heat up in here. We're in a fight down here at the lung. And when they're in a fight at the lung, do they want the Marines on the wall in the lung? Absolutely. We want the Marines on the wall. That's the way it works. We don't want to do that, in my opinion. And why? Because it causes subluxation. Because when you're sick, you lay around. And when you lay around, your body doesn't function properly. It creates interference in your nervous system when you're on your way to dying. That's not great. Okay, death creates massive interference in the nervous system. So I try to keep my people from as much as I can. I try to keep them away from that. Okay? So you're fixing to head into the winter. You have the opportunity to get some sort of respiratory thing. I'm not treating it. You can talk to your medical doctor if you want to treat it. What I'm saying is, here's healthy ways that you can live your life. Here's healthy ways. Number one, take your vitamin D now, take your fish oil now. Those are things that are going to keep your inflammation down, and it's going to keep your immune system up. Those are things that you can do. You can go listen to Dr. Berg. He's super famous on YouTube. He's a chiropractor, and he does a great job. Dr. Berg. We'll look him up right quick. A lot of you guys probably already know him. And I'm not saying I agree with everything that he says or whatever. I'm simply saying that, Dr. Eric Berg, Berg. He's a chiropractor. He does a lot of social media stuff and does a really good job with it. And but if you want to talk about it with him, if you want to get someone else's opinion about it, then you can go to him, or you can go to listen to Dr. Hyman talk about it. That'd be another person that you could go listen. Like all the people I know, All the people that I know that I study that talk about health, that really get into health, they think you should get highly. Dr. Berg says 10,000 IUs of vitamin D every day. We're 5 to 10,000 in our office, right? He's got a legitimate argument about that. So if you do that before you get there, if you prepare before the game, you're probably not going to throw Diet Coke up against the press box. That's the lesson of the story today, right? You'll be way better off if you're prepared when you do get it than if you try to deal with it afterwards. And you don't want to decrease your fever because your fever is innate intelligence trying to fight off this infection. So think about it. If I don't take any acetaminophen, and acetaminophen comes in lots of products, put it in your NyQuil so you can sleep. Now you take it in your Tylenol during the day. It's like, yeah, you're doubling up on that acetaminophen. Okay. If I don't take acetaminophen, what's going to happen in my body if I don't take acetaminophen? My temperature is going to stay up at 102. Okay. Why did my temperature go to 102? Because my white blood cells sent a signal to my brain that say, hey, brother, help me out. My brain says, okay, turn the thermostat up. Let's make this hot. Why? Because now our white blood cells are just starting to slay it, right? Now, the fact that I didn't take any Tylenol, am I going to lose my glutathione off of my lung? Nope. So now I'm going to keep my glutathione on my lung. I'm going to keep my white blood cells at an advantage because it's working in a hot environment. And we're going to start to kill that virus or that bacteria quickly. We're going to start to attack that dude, right? And me personally, I'd rather have the fight happen on the wall between me and the earth. I'd rather the fight stay out there than for it to get in. Because once it gets in, it's difficult to deal with. It's a harder fight. But what if I was to take acetaminophen? Now what's going to happen? I'm going to decrease my temperature. I'm going to give the advantage to the virus. I'm going to deplete my glutathione in my liver, which is now going to send the signal to my lungs to pull the glutathione off my lungs to now fight or to get rid of the acetaminophen. That's why it only lasts for 4 hours. That's why you got to take another one 4 hours from now, right? Because your fever goes down. How many of you have experienced that? Your fever went up to 102. You took your acetaminophen. Your fever went down. How long did it take? It took an hour or two. And then what happened to your fever? It went back up. What was going on in that hour or two? What was happening in that hour or two that your fever was down? Your glutathione was trying to get rid of the acetaminophen. That's what was happening. You were trying to fight that crap off in your lung, and your lung was in your liver. It was trying to get rid of all that stuff. It is like, dude, I got to have more of it because now I'm using it all up. And if I run out of substrate, if I run out of it, I can't. It's hard to make omelets if you don't have any eggs. If you use up all your eggs and you say, hey, can we have omelets tonight? Nope, we don't have any eggs left. Right? That's what happens with our glutathione. Okay, enough about that. That's just one of the things. Physiology of a fever. You can look it up. Go to the National Library of Medicine. You could look it up. Physiology, fever. Breaks it down for you right there. What's going on at the cellular level? What's happening? Organ systems involved. All that sort of thing. It'll break it down for you. All right. We've done the American Heart Association. Oh, when I searched, I didn't Google it. When I searched it, one thing I got was, when I searched contraindications to being healthy, there's none. There's really no contraindications to being healthy. But this is what I got right here. I got one of the things that came up was the American Heart Association recommendations for adult physical activity in adults and kids. This comes from the American Heart Association itself, heart.org. And it says, how much physical activity should we get? Recommendations for adults. And this is coming from the American Heart Association. So it's like, wow, okay. Get at least 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity aerobic activity, or 75 minutes per week of vigorous aerobic activity, or a combination of both, preferably spread throughout the week. 150 minutes per week. That's 5 workouts of 30 minutes of getting your heart rate up and working out. Okay? This is their recommendations. I just thought I'd read it to you. Any moderate to high intensity muscle strengthening activity, such as resistance or weights, on at least 2 days per week. Spend less time sitting. Even light intensity activity can offset some of the risk of being sedentary. Gaining even more benefits by being active at least 300 minutes or 5 hours per week. Increase amount of intensity gradually over time. So if you're an adult, they're talking about anywhere from 150 minutes to 300 minutes of exercise. That's coming from the American Heart Association. The recommendations for kids: children 3 to 5 years old should be physically active and have plenty of opportunities to move throughout the day. I went in to get adjusted today. I saw my chiropractor. I walked in. He was back with a person, and his front desk person wasn't there. And I came in. There was a mom. I think it was a mom. It was a lady and a kid sitting there. And the kid was slouched. His butt was so far in front. He was almost about to fall off the couch in front of him. And he was slouched back, leaning all the way back. And his head was like this, looking at his phone. And I sat down and I looked at him, and then I looked at the mom, and she looked at me looking at him, and she didn't know who I was. And I looked at him and I thought, this is not my office, and this is not my patient, and I don't really have any authority right here. So it'd probably be better off if I just waited for my turn to get adjusted. It was hard to do. Didn't want to do it, but I sat there and I watched that kid with his head down. Now, he was a very fit, athletic looking kid, but he was sitting there with his head down the whole time. And he was turning his brain off. And I was just thinking about that. When it says right here, recommendations for kids, a 3 to 5-year-old child should be physically active and have plenty of opportunities to move throughout the day. They should not be looking at their phone, sitting on their butt, looking at their iPad, playing video games, and sitting down. They should be on their feet moving. Kids 16 to 17 years old should get at least 60 minutes per day of moderate to vigorous exercise, moderate to vigorous intensity, physical activity, mostly aerobic. 60 minutes a day if you're 6 to 17 years old. Include vigorous intensity activities on at least 3 days per week. Include muscle and bone strengthening at least 3 days per week. What is intensity? Physical activity is anything that moves your body and burns calories. This includes things like walking, climbing, stairs, and stretching. Examples of moderate intensity aerobic activity: brisk walking at least 2.5 miles per hour, water aerobics, dancing, ballroom or social, gardening, tennis, doubles, biking slower than 10 miles per hour. Look, don't kid yourself on that gardening thing, right? That's not getting it done. People say that to me all the time. Well, I do lots of gardening. No, get your feet moving and get going right there. It's not going to be good. Okay. I think I lost my radio show, but examples of vigorous intensity aerobic activities: hiking uphill or with a heavy backpack, running, swimming laps, vigorous aerobic dancing, heavy yard work such as continuous digging or hoeing. I guess if you're really digging or hoeing, yeah. Tennis singles, cycling 10 miles per hour or faster, and jumping rope. Those are things that you could do to get vigorous intensity of aerobics. So I thought it was great. If you Google, if you search, it's so hard not to say that. If you search contraindications for being healthy, all you do is you get healthy stuff. You just get healthy ideas over and over and over again. There was a bunch of them right there. And there's some stuff on the microbiome that we might share with you tomorrow. Might want to get into that. So yeah, I think I lost my show. So hey, that's the end of the show for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night at 6. I got a whole bunch of stuff that we can get after talking about. Might get into Dr. Perlmutter's brain maker. That's what I was going to talk about, feeding your microbiome. So I hope you guys have a great night. Thanks for watching the show. Leave me a message if you want to. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow night at 6.